the turn of the year, and we know that the Feast of Ingathering, or Sukkot, is on the 15th of the 7th month, then what does that mean about the 7th month? The 7th month is the new year, right? And I know it's confusing, and it won't make any more sense this week than it did 2 weeks ago. But we have the Mishnah, which we saw 2 weeks ago. There are 4 new years. On the 1st of Nisan, Nisan is the first month biblically. On the 1st of Nisan is a new year for kings and for festivals. So that's when kings would take their reign. The 1st of Elul is a new year for the tithing of cattle. It has to do with taxes. The 1st of Tishrei, the first day of the 7th month, is a new year for years, for release and jubilee years. So that's when we change the number of the year in which we are. Okay? Everyone with me? Good. Now, in the Talmud, so where it says Rosh Hashanah 8a, Rabbi Eliezer said that the world was created in Tishrei. Rabbi Nachman, the son of Isaac, explains the Mishnah refers to the divine judgment, as it is written in Deuteronomy, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, which means that from the beginning of the year, sentences passed as to what shall be up to the end of it. How do we know this occurs in Tishrei? Because it's written in the book of Psalms, blow the horn at the new moon, at the covered moon. I don't follow everything in there either, but what we get is one rabbi who says that the world was created in the month of Tishrei. What does that mean? That means, well, time existed before the world was created. Right? As the biblical story of creation works, even though there was no world, there was no earth, there was stuff. Right? God didn't create the world from nothing. God created the world from what was called tohu vabohu, chaos. But there was something there. Okay? So according to this midrash, this story based on Torah, God created the world in the 7th month, which means that Rosh Hashanah is not just the new year. It's also Earth's birthday. Right? So if Shabbat, we know one of the reasons we celebrate Shabbat is to commemorate the 7th day of creation. We do it each week. Yeah, what was the other reason given for celebrating Shabbat as a remembrance of? Good. Exodus from Egypt. Right? That has nothing to do with this. That was just to where you paid attention last week. So Rosh Hashanah is both the new year and also a commemoration of the creation of the world. Right? But Rabbi Nachman of Isaac says it's not just the creation of the world, it's also when judgment takes place. Okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit about the theology of Yom Kippur. Rabbi will talk more about it if he hasn't already. But for at least one understanding of God, one belief in God, that it's not just that we're saying we're sorry for all of our sins, that this is when we're judged. Right? We read in the prayer book about the book of life. There's a prayer that's troubling to many people. I'm one of them. But it says, on this day it is written, who shall live, who shall die, right? Who shall be rich, who shall be poor, who shall be, we'll read it, okay? It's not fun to read. But that's one belief, that Yom Kippur, that this whole season is when those decisions are made. Okay. Page 3. What do we do on Rosh Hashanah? This is what I started talking about. First is getting ready for Yom Kippur. At 4 seasons, divine judgment is passed on all the world. At Passover in respect of produce, and Shavuot in respect of fruit. So those are the days where it's decided how our crops are going to be. at Rosh Hashanah, all creatures pass before God like children of Maron, which might mean like single file. As it says, he that fashions the earth of them all he that fashions the heart of them all considers all their doings, from Psalms. Remember, I told you in rabbinic logic, any verse of Tanakh, any verse of the Hebrew Bible, can be used to explain any other question, right? Regardless of its original context. And on Sukkot, judgment is passed in respect to rain. So kind of like those 4 new years, right? There are also 4 judgments, and Rosh Hashanah is when we begin being judged. Rabbi Abahu said, on now Rosh Hashanah 16a, when Rosh Hashanah is described in the Torah, it's called Yom Teruah, or the day of the last, I guess? Horn. Okay, so we know that the ritual for Rosh Hashanah, the ritual of rituals for Rosh Hashanah, is the blowing of the shofar. And I have a whole slew of information on the shofar for you. We're going to come back to that. Or do you want to do it now? Are you guys getting tired? You need to get woken up? Okay. So the shofar is part of the Rosh Hashanah service. I'm not going to go through, because since I gave you the article, I'm not going to go through everything in the article. You're welcome to read it. It's more information than you need. One interesting thing is it says that the shofar can be made from just about any kosher animal that has horns, except for the cow. And the reason that a cow's horn cannot be a shofar is because of the golden calf. Okay? Now, this, usually when we think shofar, we think ram's horn. Right? And that's what was mentioned in the Mishnah that I gave you. This is not a ram's horn. A ram's horn would be like this little guy over here. This is from an ibex. Right? And you can see how, I mean, it really is a horn. And this was, one of our first instruments, but it was, even though there are people who play jazz shofar, I have not experimented. Toyed is the word. Thank you. Thank you. I have toyed around in the world of jazz shofar. There was a talent show in rabbinical school, and I put together a whole little piece. Well, it's been a while. But it really was a motive of communication. And when we talked about the calendar, right? I know this was your favorite class, and I'm going to keep coming back to it. We talked about one of the problems being a lack of confidence in what day it was, right? And the time that it took for information to pass. And the blasting of the shofar would be one way that messages would be sent. When there was a leap year, right? When they were going to, remember before there was that mathematical formula for when to add the extra month. When the court decided we needed an extra month, this could be one way to pass that message. If we were being attacked, right? Just like we have sirens now for hurricanes, or this was the very first emergency siren. Now for Rosh Hashanah, it has multiple purposes. You have the announcement of the new year, right? So it is connected to this idea of, now I'm using it. So it is connected to this, it's probably not good to, I don't know. So it's connected to this idea of the new year, but it's also connected to the concept of repentance that's going to follow us throughout both holidays, because it's our wake-up call. right? It's an alarm. The commandment, when we say the blessing, we say Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who's given us all of the commandments. This is the same way we begin many of our prayers. And commanded us lishmoa. Lishmoa. For those of you who've grown up Jewish, what word does lishmoa sound like? Shema, which means listen, or hear, right? So the commandment is to hear the voice of the shofar. Not everyone is commanded to blow the shofar, which is good, because I've heard some people who really shouldn't be blowing shofar. The commandment is to hear the shofar. And that's what's important, that it's this idea of waking up, of getting ready for the season. In the Sephardic custom, Sephardic Judaism is Spanish. If you look at your calendars, the month of Elul, which is the month leading up to Tishrei, what holidays are in the month of Elul? Yeah. So Elul is the 6th month. What holidays? None. There are 0 holidays in the month of Elul. It's one of only 2 months without any holidays. And one reason is that we're getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. So in the Sephardic tradition, every single morning in the month of Elul, except for Shabbat, they blow shofar. Which, when I was living in Jerusalem, right by a Sephardic synagogue, who had their morning service at 6 in the morning, I definitely knew Elul was coming, or Elul was here, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur were coming, and I got ready. In the Ashkenazi tradition, we don't do that. What do we do to get ready? And this is one of the terms for those of you who are converting. Slichot. And Slichot is only an Ashkenazi tradition. It's the Saturday night before Rosh Hashanah. It's a midnight service where we begin to look at the themes of the upcoming holy days. Okay? For us, that's Saturday night, September 24th. It's not at midnight. I forget what time it is, but we're showing a movie. There's a great dessert reception, and then we have our Slichot service. What was I talking about? Shofar. So, and in Ashkenazi tradition, you will hear the shofar on Slichot. You don't hear it every day leading up, but it is blown on Slichot. Now, there's a great explanation here, but I'm going to give you my version. And this should start sounding familiar. There was argument as to how the shofar was supposed to be sounding. Okay? There were really 3 notes. One is tekiah, which is 1 blast. One is shivarim, which is 3 blasts. And one is teruah, which is 9 short blasts. Okay? Now, the confusion was, and if you go to page 4, okay, the idea was that the shivarim and the teruah were surrounded by tekiyahs. But there was argument as what is that middle note supposed to be? So what the tekiyah is, and it's been 8 years, so. All right, shivarim. Teruah. And then, right, so that's really what we're working with. So what they'll do in the traditional shofar calls is you'll have tekiah, then shivarim teruah, which is a combination of the two, followed by another tekiah, then tekiah, with Shivarim in the middle, followed by another